Good afternoon, everybody. Just wanted to share my thoughts on what's happening right now across the country. As everyone else is, I'm sure many of you have opinions on what's happening, and I do as well. We're going to let the list populate before I open this discussion. And this will be brief. We'll get back to boxing, but if you came here for boxing on this live, we're not going to be covering that subject on this particular live. This is one of the few times I'll actually discuss something aside from boxing here. But I have a take on what's happening. I do. And I'm sure many of you guys out there do too as well. In this country, it is a very big problem, the misappropriation of power. This is true on all levels: governmental, municipal, civil servants. Their misappropriation of power is a step in the direction of anarchy, and that's what we're witnessing here today in this country. It's anarchy. Violence begets violence. So when those in a position of power use excessive violence against the citizens they're supposed to be protecting, it's only natural that in time a violent response will ensue. That's what's happening. What's goody Jay? What's goody JD? What's goody Gaza? What's goody George? This shouldn't be misinterpreted. Whether or not I, as an individual, advocate or don't advocate for violence is besides the point, because it's a simple matter of fact. It's causality, whether you like it or not. If an issue goes unchecked long enough, it will create a bigger problem. And that's what's happened in America for decades upon decades upon decades. So many injustices left unchecked have created an environment that is not safe for, certain municipal servants. My view of it is, this should have been corrected a long time ago. These police departments had ample time and ample opportunity over the years to correct themselves, and they were left unchecked. And as a result of that, the people have had enough. So the people are fighting back. It is what it is. It's causality. I do think that this will affect change moving forward, because any situation like this situation will warrant a certain level of reverence to what is happening here and now. They will have this to use as a point of reference moving forward. You can't turn a blind eye when a civil servant misappropriates his or her power and think that there's not going to be a problem. There's going to be a problem, which is why I look at this as an evil, but a necessary evil. You can't allow cops to get away with this kind of stuff and think that people are just going to keep putting up with it. They're not. Bottom line. Now, I'm sure that many of you guys have opinions on this. I'll give you an opportunity to discuss them here on the channel. But as far as my view, this is a necessary evil. Anybody doesn't have to like it, but, Let me see what's going on. I'm Fayetteville, and it was crazy out here last night. I was goody, Augustin. What's goody? I don't know how to pronounce your name, bro. I understand if you don't agree. Eparokwa. I understand if you don't agree, but whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, it's happening, and that goes back to what I said before. It's a simple case of causality. When civil servants use excessive force against American citizens and they are left unchecked, and these kind of practices go on for years and years and years, this will be the response. To every force, there's an equal, to every action, there's an equal and opposing reaction. This is that reaction. If you don't want it to get to this point, you have to speak up. And that's the problem. The people that need to speak up or should have spoken up didn't. So here we are. I see people trying to mask their real feelings behind concern for property damage. That's funny to me, man. Hey, what's goody, Dr. Wu Doc? Yeah, except that it's not like people are only coming across this information via the media. There are many individuals out there who have experienced this or seen it with their own two eyes, and they're very familiar with this kind of a situation, regardless of what the media is putting out. So it's not as simple as the media told me to be upset, so I'm upset. Exactly, JD. You reciprocate the same energy you distribute. It really is that simple. Whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, whether anybody on this chat right now likes it or not, this is a case of causality. That's what it is. Civil servants were allowed to use excessive force for many, many years against people of a particular denomination. And as a result of that, they've woken the sleeping giant, for lack of a better word. The American people, white, black, and brown, they're done putting up with it. They're done putting up with it. And this is the consequence of injustice. That's what this is. Don't sit here telling me about the property damage and the anarchy and the chaos when it is chaos for a civil servant to execute a man in broad daylight while he's being filmed. That is chaos. That's what that is. So if you're worried about spray paint on the side of buildings, a target getting looted, you got to use that same energy for when a cop executes a man. And, you know, if it weren't for everything that's happening, I'm fairly confident that that cop would walk. He would not be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law if there weren't a violent reaction to his own violence. Police reform has been needed for many, many years. I could sit here telling you about stuff I've experienced, and to some degree, and I can sit here telling you about stuff I've seen, but I don't have to, because every single American is familiar with what I'm talking about. So I don't need to familiarize you with it. We all know what's going on. We all know what time it is. I don't need to tell you about some incident in 2002, 2003. We all know what's going on. So I don't want to hear about, oh, well, they're looting the target. Of course there are people exploiting this situation. The government exploits us every day. The companies, the big pharmacy companies, the big clothing companies, they exploit us every day. So if you're so fucking worried about people exploiting this as a means to, steal some stuff and do some stuff, you should be worried about the exploitation we experience every single day as American citizens. So I don't want to hear about, oh, well, there's people that are exploiting this to steal stuff. Yeah, there are always going to be people that are using something, someone in an exploitative way. But this is a byproduct of a bigger problem. And the problem is what needs to be fixed. The byproduct you can worry about thereafter. What's goody boxing monk? What's goody boxing finesse? What's goody battle rifle? Oh yeah, Bob. This is gonna be one greatest. Oh man. What's goody, Timmy? You know what I'm saying? All right? You gotta realize something. It's bigger than any one individual. How long has this been going on? And we all know what it's a byproduct of. We all know it. There's no need to be coy and play stupid. The people are demanding justice because they were deprived of it. And since they can't seem to get justice by going through the proper channels, they're going to take action into their own hands. Whether I advocate for it or not, whether you advocate for it or not, that's what they're going to do, because for every action, there is an equal and opposing reaction. And this is that reaction. This is happening across the country. It's not just one city that's pissed off, because this has happened for years in cities across America. I realize that there are those out there that try to misappropriate real issues for personal gain. We talk about it here on the channel all the time. But this is real. This is happening, and it has happened for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. Nobody's misappropriating this. This is what I'm always talking about. It's exploitative to use real issues for personal gain. It is exploitative. But what we're talking about here and what's happening, well, that's not exploitative. This is real. For some of you out there, this is right outside your window. What up, Ring? It's looking crazy in the US, UK, London. From what I'm hearing, there are protests anywhere from Germany to the United Kingdom in reference to the George Floyd situation. George Floyd incident, what I think of as an execution, because that looked like a premeditated murder to me. That guy knew exactly what he was doing, and he did it long enough to see it through. He knew what he was doing. Exactly, Candace. Shout out to Candace. What's rocking, Lisa? What's rocking, Ahmed? What's rocking, John P? Social joints. Anybody, preaching to me about oh, the property damage, oh my god, the property damage, the vandalism, the looting. You're less concerned with a man being publicly executed and more concerned with how this affects Target or Walmart or Louis Vuitton. Cut it out. All I'm saying is, if you don't want to see these kinds of situations in your city, then you need to do what you've got to do to prevent these kinds of injustices. You can't stand idly by when you know these things are going on, because you're inviting this to happen. If this is what you're in opposition of, then you need to speak up when it counts. That's the problem. Those that could have spoken up, they didn't. So this is the end result, and it can get worse. Oh yes, it can get worse. I'm not saying that I want it to. Far from it. I have children. I don't want to go outside and walk into a war zone. But it's a simple matter of fact that that might be the case if the people in power don't distribute that power evenly and penalize those who need to be penalized. It's always been the case. Being a cop should not make it okay for you to murder someone in cold blood. It really is just that simple. Those are my thoughts on this. This is a simple case of causality, as all things are, a case of causality. If left unchecked, this will become a huge problem. And now for many, it has become a huge problem. Now I'm going to open up I'm going to post the link here. I'm going to give everyone one by one a chance to speak, because I don't want too many people talking over each other. If you want to get a word in on this, here's a link. I'll let everybody on one by one, so that way we don't get a lot of people talking over each other. Everybody gets their chance to speak. Yeah. I'm sure, 100% sure that many of you out there that live in the same country as I do have seen and or, not just seen, and or experienced the kind of excessive force to some degree that we're seeing. All right, I'm gonna let D on first. Go ahead, D, the floor is yours. Just speak your mind on it.
Hey, bro. Appreciate you having me on, dog. As usual. But I was just talking about this situation myself, and I just want to say this, man. My perspective on this whole thing is, I understand. Like, everybody don't think alike. Everybody thinks differently. We all have our own perspective on things, and I understand the backlash. I will say I understand why people are upset and why they're doing things. My thing is that I don't feel like the things that's being done is representing what we need to say about George Floyd. I don't think that the things that's being done is effective anyhow, concerning George Floyd. Will it get noticed? Yes. Will it cause our leaders or government to react? Yes. In what way? That's yet to be seen. But I just think that we could come together as people and figure out a different way to make that happen. That's all I say about, all of the looting and the rioting and the reckless acts. You know what I mean? The peaceful protests, I have nothing against that. You know what I mean? But just the looting, the rioting, I just think it could something else that we could do. That's all.
I agree with you, D. It's not that I don't. I agree that there are ways to affect change without any consequence to anyone else. But my thing is that a police officer executing a man the way that this guy did, that breeds anarchy. That's a form of anarchy. So when you open that door, it's a very hard door to close. And that door has been open for such a long time. It's almost
Right.
like they've been inviting this problem that, one day people are just going to rise up and they're going to get tired of this.
Yep.
And for me, from where I'm sitting, it's not about advocating for it or against it so much as it's causality. When this goes on, this is going to be the end result. Whether I agree with it or not, whether anybody agrees with it or not, this is what's going to happen. And there is a historical precedent set that when there's injustice, people are going to rise up and they're going to get tired of it.
That's a fact, bro.
All right, I'm gonna let Two Hands in on this. I'm gonna just put you backstage for a second because I want everybody to get a chance to speak without anybody talking over each other. So I'll keep you backstage for now, and I'm gonna let Two Hands on it, right?
No doubt, no doubt. Thanks, bro.
All right.
Right.
All right, what's good, Two Hands? Speak your piece.
What's good, Ray? Yeah, man, I absolutely agree. Anarchy is a cause of, things like situation of George Floyd happening. I mean, the world laying its eyes on it. But I think George Floyd is just, I think he was the straw that broke the camel's back. But the injustice is just a small microcosm of all of the things that have been going on in collective. Like we've had people that have been dealing with so many losses from COVID-19. Not only that, but then just this constantly happening over and over again. And like I just brought up earlier, the Amber Geiger situation, like her shooting Botham Jean, thinking that she was on the wrong floor of her apartment, her getting convicted and only getting 2 years, the judge stepping down from the podium, hugging her and giving her a Bible after, she just murdered this man's family. They only give her 2 years. So now basically we're saying, oh, you even if you get convicted, you're going to walk away 2 years later and you'll get to go on with your life. So when people are constantly witnessing all of these things, yeah, anarchy is one of those things that will form from all of this, because you're basically saying there is nothing that we can do that will breed justice from this situation. You've got your knee all in this guy's neck. You didn't decide to prosecute him after you witnessed this injustice. You chose to let him go home with paid leave. So when people are constantly seeing this done over and over again, it breeds PTSD.
No, you're right. You're right. PTSD.
PTSD. For so many families that are going through this. Like I even brought up the Khalif Browder situation, wrongly being convicted for saying that he assaulted a Mexican man and robbed him, and he had to serve over 10 years on Rikers Island. He comes home, he hangs himself because of the PTSD from that situation. So it's so many people that are dealing with this who suffer from injustice and not have received any justice from this. So when hands start being raised and people start acting out, this is what happens. These are the type of things that happen. So I'm saying, is it right? No, but I'm just saying, what is wrong when you've seen so many wrong things done? How else do you act? You begin to act out.
I'm gonna say, yeah. I mean, I agree with all your sentiments. To me, it's a simple case of causality. When X happens, Y happens.
Right.
So when injustice and the system is not working, the people who have been abiding within that system and trying to abide by it will be the ones who tear it down. Why? Because the system failed them. There's no reason we should treat human lives as collateral damage to what are civil servants. We don't live in a war zone, but there are those out there who make it a war zone with what they do. And if they weren't making it a war zone, there would be no reason to protest. There would be no reason to riot or to stand up against anything in an ideal world. Well, that's the problem. It's not an ideal world. How many police officers have gotten away with doing things, questionable ethics, questionable actions, and they get away with it? And we are talking about killing people. So, I mean, you let that go on long enough. If justice isn't served, it will be served to you. And that's what's happening.
Like I always go back to myself in this situation. When I look at it like this, I'm like, my whole entire life, every time I've encountered police officers, I've never felt like they were there to work in my favor. I've always felt like I was doing something wrong, even if I wasn't doing something wrong. You know, just the way they, you know, they don't even look welcoming. It's just like, you know, you shouldn't even be fearful of police. Police are there to serve and help you. They don't carry that kind of demeanor. Nobody really feels that way about police officers, and that's bad. The people that are supposed to be serving you, you feel like they're to do a disservice to you before they're there to protect you. You shouldn't feel that way.
I agree. I mean, I think that the main thing is, and I said this on D's show, that I think it would do a lot of service to quell this situation if the officers themselves took a stance and corrected this issue from the inside out. The problem is they've had that opportunity to do this for years and years, and more of these cases, they just keep coming out, even though they've had that opportunity. So now when the people get fed up, it's very hard to reason with them. Why? Because now they're belligerent. It's gone on for too long. As you said, to your point, this is like the straw that broke the camel's back, because this is only one of hundreds of cases that are like this. Hundreds, and that's an understatement. Hundreds. That's an understatement. That's how bad it's become. And that's what makes this the consequence of injustice, because that's the only way I could think of it. It's a consequence. If you let this shit go on for too long, it's going to create something that you cannot control, and you'll regret not acting sooner, because you can't treat human life. You cannot treat human life like that. I don't care where it's from. Can't treat people like that. And that's what's been going on in this country for a long fucking time.
Right, because as a human being, you're sitting at home and you see another case of another person that looks like you who gets slain in the streets, and then you're basically like, this person again. It gets to a point to where you see it so much you either become desensitized to it or you're going to have to act to it. It'll be a scary situation if, you know, the American people become desensitized to watching us being killed in the streets. So it warrants an action. So for me, as when I sit there and I watch these people are doing, whether they're looting, etc., or they're acting out of character based on the situation, I'm looking at it like, well, it makes sense to me. They had to do something, because you can't just sit there continuously just watch this happen. It almost
more so Two Hands. I want to say this for those out there who think that the rioters need to be a little bit more peaceful. What I'm going to say to you is, forget the rioters, forget the looters, forget all of that up until that point. What exactly was George Floyd supposed to do to defend himself and spare his own life? That's my question. For anybody out there who wants to keep arguing to me about how, oh no, the looters need to do something, forget them. What is a black man in America supposed to do to protect himself against those kinds of circumstances? Because I'm telling you, to me, it's all a deflection when I see someone reacting to the looters more than the catalyst. George Floyd and that what's his name, Chauvin, that piece of shit. That's what caused all of this. All right. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be here. That is the problem. So what was George Floyd supposed to do in that situation? Because everybody's got a fucking solution, right? Everybody's got a fucking great idea. So what was he supposed to do? You know? And if he did something to try and defend himself, because he wouldn't get shot, right? He wasn't going to get shot. You know what I mean? This is why I say that, look, you got to read between the lines. Anybody talking to me about property damage and how the looting, oh my God, the looting, you sound like Sally Struthers. The looting is the least of our worries. You're not the least bit concerned that civil servants are executing people in broad daylight while they're being filmed, and that in all likelihood, unless there's a reaction like this, they are going to get away with it. You know why it doesn't bother you? I'm going to tell you why. Because you likely don't look like George Floyd. That's why it doesn't bother you.
Absolutely.
That's the only reason. You don't feel that element of danger. But if you do look like George, or you care about people that look like George, you know, people around, Americans, your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, your cousins, your friends, your high school classmates, the people you served with in the military, the people you see at work. You care about these people, and you don't think that that should go on, that this is ridiculous. We're in 2020. We're supposed to be above this. You're not going to be so cavalier with this situation and worry about Target losing a couple of batteries in the middle of a riot. Target will be all right, man, but will George be all right? Target's going to be okay. Target, Louis Vuitton, all of them, they're going to be fine. They are. Believe me, they are.
Because let's be perfectly honest here. There's a George Floyd that lives right next to you. He just didn't get hit. Just wasn't his neck that had a knee into it. So we need to be realistic about that. There's somebody that lives right next to you that you shake hands with every day that you care about. That could potentially be a George Floyd. Or speaking to the situation where the guy who took care of children who worked with autistic kids, and the kid was in the street, and the autism kid was having a fit, and he had his little toy. It was a submarine or an airplane or something like that. And the police drew down on the guy and the kid with autism. And he told him, he's like, well, unarmed kid has autism and he just has his toy in his hand. The police officer still shot the guy that was taking care of the kid. And he was on the street, spread out, hands up, spread into a defenseless position. And he still gets shot for no reason. So these are the things that are happening every single day that nothing is being done about it. So,
and that's just the ones that we know about. There's so many that we don't hear. I mean, like this is my point. Now I'm gonna give Bobby Dream a chance to speak. I'm gonna give Bobby Dream a chance to speak. I'm gonna put you backstage. I want everybody to get a chance to talk about this. All right, so I'm gonna just put you backstage real quick.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Bobby Dream, speak your piece.
Hey, Joe, you can hear me?
All right, what's goody, Bobby?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right, straight up, I just want to make a point real quick. First and foremost, I've actually been a subject of some police violence in the past, and the details surrounding it is really not that important. But the bottom line is, they got warrants. I didn't go to court. They took me out of the back of somebody's car, a friend of mine's car. I was cooperating, and they proceeded to lay some violence in on me. Now I fought back. I fought back 100% because I was getting hit by 5 or 6 different people. But I'll be honest with you, if this color of my skin was a different shade, if I was the same color as George Floyd, I got to be right here having this conversation with you. I do not think that would be true. I think I probably would have been shot 1,000%. Now, my other point is, like you were saying, the people that are attacking the looters and have to say about people looting than the actual violence in the street, those people are part of the problem.
Yes.
Those people are part of the problem because it is a much bigger problem to have people executed in the street unless there is an outrage, unless there is some kind of crazy response. Nothing changes, nothing gets done. This is almost, it's not the identical situation, but it's so similar to Eric Garner, and for that to happen again, it's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's as simple. To me, it's as simple as this. All right, we know this is a reality. We know this. We've seen it enough. So we're beyond mulling over the double standards. We're beyond addressing what is obvious to every single American. We're beyond that already. We all know what's going on. So either you're gonna correct it, which you still haven't, and it's 2020, and you still haven't corrected it, or you're gonna force people, which is what they've done. You've forced people to do something about it because you ain't gonna do nothing about it. The police departments have not corrected their own practices. There has been no reform. It's continually going on. It's gone on in city after city after city after city in America. It's clearly targeted, clearly racially motivated, and it's still going on in 2020. So what's it going to take? Is it going to take for all the cities in America to be burned down for you guys to finally buckle down and start cracking some eggs? Because that's what it looks like.
Martin Luther King Jr. said it. He said, rioting is the voice of the voiceless. He didn't condone people looting, but it's more to just, calling it criminality. There's a criminality behind what people are doing. When your voice is constantly ignored, when you're constantly killed in the street, when there's constantly, a double standard, there's obviously going to be a reaction. And for people to have, and I hate to say it, for a lot of white people to have more of a reaction to the looting as opposed to the actual injustice, that's pathetic in my opinion. Now, I'm obviously, I'm part of the, I'm a white dude, bro, white dude, and I got a lot of white friends. I do. And whenever I call out racial injustice, my white friends think I'm fucking crazy. A lot of these guys that I know are passive aggressive racists. And it's not just the people I know, it's a lot of people. They don't want to admit that there's a problem. And anytime someone of my complexion admits there's a problem, I'm looking like I'm crazy, bro. And I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that narrative. I'm good, bro.
What we have to do as Americans is we have to, if you have a stance, take it. If you have a stance. And really, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what stance it is, because at least then you can identify your enemies. There's a lot of people hiding behind silence. but they know that they benefit. They know that they benefit from a broken system, so they say nothing.
Yep.
And that silence. Right now, we're at this point. We're at this point. And if you're not gonna say anything, you've told me everything. Now I'm gonna give Troy. I'm gonna give Troy a chance to come on here. He was backstage. He dropped off, but I'm gonna post the link for him. I'm gonna give Troy a chance to say something. All right.
Catch you
All
later,
right.
Jules. Thank you. Peace.
All right. No problem, Bobby. All right, Troy. The floor is yours.
How you doing, man?
Oh, good.
You know, I wasn't even going to log on. I was just going to listen until I saw the topic of the show, right? Well, I come from a different perspective because I have two brothers that are police officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have one that was murdered by the police.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got it on both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been fitting the description since I was 12 years old.
Mm.
I've been fitting that my father got stopped by police. As a matter of fact, every man in my family that I know, father, brother, cousins, they all got stopped by police because they fit the description.
Mm.
So, you know, actually, I wanted to ask, every show I'm going to jump on from now on, I'm going to ask you to do something because really, the only way that we could even bring about change is a simple thing, and I'm going to explain it to you, but it's simply called keep your hands in your pocket, and buy black, and only work with those black companies that actually want to help out your community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before anybody says, "Oh, that's racist," or anything, in every major city you'll find a Chinatown. You'll find an Italian neighborhood. You'll find a Jewish neighborhood. You'll find every neighborhood that's completely run and financed by those individuals. So all I'm saying to black people is take that $1 trillion away that you spend every year with somebody else and put it in your own community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, there
You
isn't.
don't have to call it Black Town, African Town, or whatever the case may be. None of us need to be wearing, honestly, it's black-owned shoe companies out here that we don't support, black-owned toilet paper companies, black-owned hair supply companies, black-owned supermarkets. Except if you got to drive a little further, if you got to go and catch a bus a little further, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, people could only treat you how you allow them to treat you. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then once we take the money away, we start to police our own community from top to bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once we start policing our own community and we know who's who and how to deal with who and how to move with who, no one's gonna come in to your community and say, "Well, I'm gonna put my knee on this fool's throat," and people are just gonna video, because you don't hear that in the Jewish community, do you?
No, you really don't. You don't.
You don't hear that in Chinatown, do you?
To be fair, I have heard this and that, but I see your point that if the community itself becomes a self-sustaining community that polices itself and what goes on, and it governs its own infrastructure, that's a community that is better protected from these kinds of injustices.
Right. Because you can't walk in there because there's a power structure and so forth. Because basically, once you start to empower your own community, then guess what? You have influence over those politicians that want your vote. And it's not just your voice. You control, or you are now a power base. You don't have to go to them. They have to come to you. Because you know, when it's time for election, you'll see the aldermen, you'll see the senators go to here, and here, and they'll avoid here because they know they don't have to go there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to get people out to vote anymore. Well, when the person that needs to be voted in office is coming to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before anybody says, "Oh, black people don't stand," let me tell you something. I was married to a woman. Her grandfather lived to be 98, and every single person that ran for alderman, senator, or even president came to see him because his family and their community was so friggin' big here in Maryland. You understand me? I mean, from Gerald Ford on up to Bill Clinton. That's how many years and how many politicians came through to see Mr. White. Hey, so that we can do.
I agree. I agree. See, this is the thing. I agree with the self-sustaining community. I do. From my view, Because if we're going to look at history as any indicator of things to come, that was tried with Black Wall Street. I believe that was what, Tulsa? Am I right?
Kansas, yes. Go ahead.
And they tried it. And I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying it's not a plan. I'm not saying it's a plan that wouldn't work. But what I'm saying is the deck is kind of stacked against the citizens. The balance of power tilts too far to one in one direction. You understand? If a police officer relies on a police report about something that happened, some of the particulars involving a situation, in all likelihood, the courts will take that police officer's side over that citizens. It's going to become a case of he said, she said, and then you'll have other officers that are there corroborating that officer's story. But who's going to corroborate yours if you're lucky enough that someone can even corroborate your story?
I get all of that. I get all of that. But you know what fuels my soul, to be very honest with you? And no one could ever take this from me. I am the product of people who gave up their very lives and ran away knowing that they were going to die, ran away from master's house with their children in the pitch dark. There was no street lights. They all went by the moon, and they had like flame, they had to light sticks to see through the night, right? I am a product, and my children are a product of people that were brave enough to say, we're going to die for something that we will never see. And I'm a product of that. So I don't care about anything that's stacked against me. Because let me explain something to you. You have a mansion, right? And you say to me, Troy, since you work for me, or no, if you come work for me, I'll give you a whole ward of my mansion or whole floor of my mansion. You just have to follow my rules. No, you won't, because I have my little 1 acre over here and I have my little shack. I'll live there in freedom before I take a whole room or a whole whatever in your mansion, right? Like take Jordan, for instance. I keep telling people the difference between Michael Jordan and Stephon Marbury. Oh, Stephon ain't got money like Jordan. Jordan cannot pass Nike on to his sons, can he?
No.
No, he cannot. So sure, he's making billions, but that's money. Stephon has a legacy. He could pass on and he could grow that into a mighty damn fist. All Jordan could do is point, because he's only one finger. You understand me?
I get
that. That's what fuels me. I don't see, even if I don't look. Okay, I'll make it clear to you. You take the Japanese, because I'm not gonna be here long. You take the Japanese. They dropped 2 freaking bombs on the Japanese, right? 2. Before, usually it takes over a century to come back from something like that. They came back in 60 friggin' years. You want to know how? It's a slap in the face. They used the teachings of black nationalists because they studied Marcus Garvey, and then they had their own culture, and they built in complete silence with each other, right? If you have a 10-pound bag of rice and 1,000 people and everybody just gets one, well, you could say, well, this is what we have now, and this is what we have to do. You understand? And now you could say, well, they had their own country. Exactly. You have a lot of stuff stacked against us, but we have the one thing that we always had and why we have never been destroyed throughout history. We are the true and first people, and say what you want, of God. When you talk about the Jews, really the meaning behind that name is that your God is that they're the Jews of the Lord, right? Those people that say that they're Jews right now, they're not Jews. We are the ones who are the Jew. That's why think about slavery, think about everything else. They cannot kill us off. The only people that kill us off is us, right? So nothing can stop me from nothing. If I die tomorrow, I'm gonna take all this fury and raging with me to the grave and pass it on to my children. Anyway, I can't really die. I mean, I could die, but I have 3 sons and 2 grandsons, so I'm never gonna leave this earth. You understand what I'm saying to you? You could kill my physically, but my spirit is always gonna be here. You take one son, there's another son, there's another son, then there's a grandson, then there's a grandson, then I have a couple of nephews I raised, right? So I'm never gonna leave here, ever. And that's just how I feel. So I'm gonna jump off on that note. All right? Because I'm going and you're not gonna like anything I gotta say. So
it's okay, man. It's okay. Everybody's entitled to feel how they, especially in this day and age, in these times. But what I was, you be safe. Be safe.
Man.
What I'm gonna say is this problem. My focus is this particular problem, because I know that is a problem that could have been corrected, but was not. And if it has reached this point to where cities across America are rioting and looting and people are pissed off and American citizens are joining forces with each other, regardless of race, age, and denomination or age, it's because this is a prevalent problem that we're all aware of. It has gone on unchecked long enough, and people aren't going to put up with it. So, to my original point, whether you like what's going on or not, whether I like what's going on or not, whether you advocate for it or against it, it is a simple case of causality. And if you don't want more moments like this in history, you have to speak up. You cannot allow for injustices, then get upset that they're looting the local target. That's what's going to happen. A cop stepping on a man's neck with his knee, that's anarchy. That is anarchy. So don't get fucking mad. 2 days, 3 days, anarchy is right outside of your window because you should have said something when that cop did what he did. That cop needs to be in jail. It is that simple. And all of his co-workers are accessories to a murder. It is that simple. And if it would have happened that way from the very beginning, if the guilty parties would have been held responsible and the people were confident in their municipalities, confident in their government that justice will be served, there would be no need to riot. That's the problem. The people aren't confident, the governments know it, and they don't care. I'm going to let Ahmed in on this. Go ahead, Ahmed, speak your piece.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much what you're saying. The only thing I would say is regarding all the looting thing, some people need to be careful because I'm pretty sure I heard someone died as a result from injuries from, I don't know what shop it was, or I can't remember what it was, but that's not going to make anything better. Like if more people are dying and stuff like that, but I think people need to focus on the original thing. And what happened to that guy, that man, poor man, George Floyd? That shouldn't happen to anyone, and is happened at a bad time. Like I think recently, a couple of people have died. Like it's not a good look, just for the reason of his skin color. Like I don't know. I don't know if it's down to excuse me, it's down to just police brutality, or I just think a lot of police officers are assholes, man. And it's not just in America. I think it's in the UK as well. Like that should never happen. And to me, that was murder. I don't even think the guy's being put down for murder. Is that true or no?
To my knowledge, based on what I saw, I look at it as a premeditated murder. He had to me, if you want my opinion, it looks premeditated, and that makes it homicide. Reality is, I think they're hitting him with murder 3, which is I think it's a lesser charge. I'm pretty sure it's a lesser charge.
Yeah, that's messed up. A couple of years ago, I almost got arrested just for tying my shoelace. I was with my friend, who's a Somali, and we were just walking, and out of nowhere, 4 police officers came out of car. They were, what's the word? They weren't wearing uniform. Out of nowhere, we were getting searched, we were getting questioned, and I mean, I know it's obviously nothing like what's happening in America, but I can't imagine how people I know it's only half of what we see on camera.
All right, I'm gonna illustrate something for you, Ahmed, that you might not be aware of because you're not actually here, right? It's more common. It's more common. What you need to know as a person in another country that's not in America, what you need to know about police brutality is that it's more common than it's being reported. It's literally more common than you hear about it on any news network. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It goes unchecked.
It
It goes unchecked and has gone on unchecked, uncorrected for years and years, and everybody knows it's going on. The people who could make a difference say nothing. They don't do enough. That's the problem.
That's the bad thing. Some people don't care, and I've talked about this with other people. It's normally people that it doesn't affect. So, just a classic example: if you get an average Caucasian person who is, I'm not saying all people. I'm not generalizing. But just say, give you an example. You probably wouldn't care if they don't care about people of other. If they don't care about other minorities, if they don't really care about other people of different backgrounds or skin color, they're probably not going to do anything, and that's not a good way. I think maybe it's to do with the way they end up. I don't know if lack of education, if it's the word, or the way they just end up being brought along, or it's just, I think, is a bad look all in all. But I think the main bad thing is what's going on has been going on for years, and no one has really done anything about it.
The thing is, look, let's surmise it as concisely as we can. It's at the tipping point, and it's tipped. And it can get worse. It can get much worse, to the point to where maybe they need to bring in the National Guard and the military to control this. Because if it gets out of the police's, if it gets out of control, to where the officers cannot contain the violence and the cities cannot control what's happening, they'll bring in the military, and then you're looking at martial law, and then you're looking at people being shot on sight. But
that's not
if this environment, if this is a potential environment here today, it is as a direct result of these injustices going unchecked. Because if people felt confident in their government and their municipalities that these murderers are going to go to jail, if they believed that these guys are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, they wouldn't have anything to be worried about. They wouldn't have anything to be angry about. But that's the problem. They don't trust the government. They don't trust their municipalities. Why? Their municipalities gave them every reason not to be trusted.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'll give a brief. I think the people protesting, they're doing the right thing. There's some people who take it the wrong way and they just become extremists and supremacists. And some people, like, the guys that bring it to boxing, I think they just do it the wrong way, and I think they got the wrong motives. These guys, these people.
Let's address the exploitative people, because this is the issue. For every single issue that ever was an issue, there was someone out there looking to exploit it. That is not limited to police brutality. There are always those out there looking to exploit real issues for personal gain. It happens in boxing as it happens in politics. Politicians exploit voters by appealing to their sensibilities with issues that directly affect them. It happens all the time. So that there are people exploiting this? Of course there are. When are there not some people out there exploiting something? It happens all the time. But the people exploiting this issue are not the real problem. So we don't need to waste time on them. Oh, that there's people stealing TVs? No fucking shit. No fucking shit. Are they the real problem, though? Would they even have the opportunity to steal TVs if these issues weren't inciting these kinds of problems? No, they would not. So don't worry about the guy you see on, don't worry about the guy you see the video of running around with a pair of Nikes or a TV, because he wouldn't have the opportunity to do that if order were established. Police officers crushing people's necks with their knees is not order. It is disorder. Disorder breeds disorder. Violence begets violence.
That's the major issue. I mean, it's been going on for a long time. I don't know if you've seen that film, Fruitvale Station, but this was about a guy called Oscar Grant, and he, I think, got shot on a subway back in 2009. This is about 11 years ago. I think I seen that film in 2012 or 13. Michael B. Jordan's in it.
An unarmed man in New York City many, many years ago was shot. I don't know how many times they shot this guy. I think it was 40-something or something like that. Amadou Diallo. They lit him up like a Christmas tree. The man was unarmed. Unarmed. And this is normal. I'm telling you that this is normal shit. It goes on every day. Every case is just another case. And this is the tipping point. Now, I'm going to give Raphael Dawkins a chance.
Can I ask one last question? I was going to ask you before I jump off. You know what happened in 1990? What was in L.A.?
That was Rodney King.
Was that like one of the worst well, what's the word? What happened after that was very
The
bad. There was riots in it.
that was one of the worst riots. It was one of the worst. It was. Now I'm gonna give
All right.
Raphael a chance. I'm
All
gonna
right.
give Raphael a chance to get in on this. Good talking to you, Ahmed. All right, Raphael, the floor is yours, bro. All right, we'll give Raphael a chance. But yeah, I mean, it's causality. That's the only way I look at it. It's causality.
Okay.
I go ahead, Raphael. Speak your
Yeah.
piece.
Okay. So the thing with this situation is that America's had multiple opportunities to deal with this problem you have with your police, and they haven't done it.
Exactly. Exactly.
They haven't done it. So where is the will when the elections come around? When is it ever on the agenda that police brutality, police abuse of power is a key priority?
Exactly.
When is that ever a priority? I never hear that as being a priority, but this thing's happening year after year after, well, day after day, year after year. You're having some major issues, you know, police shooting unarmed people in the back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this one's a new. What didn't they choke a guy who was selling cigarettes?
Yeah, Eric Garner in New York City. Eric
Yeah.
Garner choked to death for selling cigarettes.
Yeah, choked. Do you remember what happened to those police or the choker?
Dog, in all honesty, I think
Yeah.
they got fired, but I don't think any of them got prosecuted. I don't remember hearing that any of them were prosecuted, but I do believe that they were fired.
Right. So you kill a guy and you just get fired over there in America and you move to the next precinct.
That's the question. You know, it's rumored that in some of these instances, and I don't know how true it is, but it's rumored that all these guys do is uproot, relocate to another state and work somewhere else, maybe for the fire department. And the penalty for taking a person's life should not be, oh, you're fired. Really, dog? That's the value you put on another human being's life. That's it. You're fired. That's it. You don't go to jail. Nothing.
Well, it's not a rumor. It's not a rumor. It's reality because I've been following this thing. I've been following this thing on YouTube videos for a while now, randomly. Just over the last few months, something popped in my notifications, and then one thing leads to another. So on a regular basis, I've been watching these police slayings, these police murders over in America. Your American police shooting unarmed black males, predominantly black males in the back, unarmed. I've seen that. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Everybody can see it. So the thing is that America, the American populace, have not said to your politicians, you must prioritize misuse of police powers. You must have that as a priority on your political agenda, or else you won't get our vote.
And this is what I'll say in reference to how this relates to the riots. They have this point of reference to now try to avert and circumvent. You don't want this happening next year. You don't want this happening every single year across the country, but it will, and it will escalate if the people that are out there that have jobs don't do their jobs. Do your job, prosecute these guys as murderers, because that's what they are, and that will give the people what they want. The people want justice. That's all they want. They just want justice. That's it.
Yeah, and I think what justice is not just a quick fix. This guy going to jail, he must go to jail. He must go to jail for murder. They've charged him on the 3rd degree. I don't know. I've heard that could be up to 25 years, but then I've seen videos where people have walked for 3rd degree murder.
Exactly.
So the fix has to be what is it? What is it? You have your I don't know what your houses of parliament are called. You have your political houses, the White House, whatever. There has to be laws passed. The next step has to be that laws are passed in the White House, wherever it is, your Congress. Laws are passed and enacted whereby this kind of thing is automatically going to receive extreme punishment.
It should, because we are talking, this isn't at least by definition, we're not living in a war zone, so the cost of human life in this fashion should not be treated like you dropped a beef patty on the floor at McDonald's. Like, oh, it was just a mistake. That's all. No, it's a fucking death is what it is. You killed somebody, dog. When you make a mistake, people die. So the consequences of that should fit the crime. I mean, if we're going to be honest, you sat posted on a man's neck till he stopped moving, and you just didn't have the foresight, you didn't have the fucking intellect, the intellectual capacity to realize that, yo, you're killing him, dog.
Well, there's a couple of points on that. Do you realize that there was 3 officers on his back?
Yes, I do, and that's why I call them accessories to a murder. That man was in handcuffs. He can't do. He is no threat to you. He can't do anything.
You can't do anything. And do you also realize that the police refused? There was a fireman, fireman medic on the scene who came up on the scene, and he offered his assistance, he offered to give George Floyd medical assistance. And are you aware that the police declined that? I
was not aware of that they declined to give him medical assistance, even though he was clearly distressed.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they declined that. I just watched a piece from one of your news channels over there. So that's official. The police, before the ambulance came, remember, the ambulance only came when he was dead, because when he came, when they came, he was dead. So before the ambulance arrived, there was a fireman medic who was passing and offered to give medical assistance, and the police declined his offer.
I want to address a comment that I see in the I know he didn't die of strangulation. He died due to complications as a result of his pre-existing conditions. However, I will ask you, if there was not a man perched on his neck, would he have died that day? Since we're going to split hairs. Would he have died if there wasn't a police officer perched on his neck like a pigeon?
No, he would not.
So I mean, you gotta call it what it is. Like I said, don't try to split. This guy is trying to split. Don't try to split hairs over it, dog. You're already showing me who you are by trying to split hairs. Don't try to split hairs over it. If there was not several police officers perched on top of him like a rooftop or something, 3 guys, what was it, 3, 4 guys?
3 guys.
One of them is on his neck.
Yeah.
Behind his neck. Would he have died if that weren't the case? No, he wouldn't have died. So please don't split hairs to me.
Well, that's a police apologist. That's an apologist. Whatever. I mean, let's be real. Those kids who shoot up schools, those little white boys who shoot up schools. You've seen the pictures.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many instances of that, and these guys don't have police officers perched on top of their necks.
More than that, they don't have a scratch on them.
They have a scratch on them. Those guys, didn't they buy that blonde kid with a bowl cut of burger? They stopped at Burger King for this guy.
Yeah, well, gotta make sure they're comfortable. Gotta make sure they're comfortable. Gotta make sure little Reggie's comfortable.
Yeah, and this is why I say that we're past. We are so far past mulling over what the double standards are. We know what they are. So we're past that. If you want a solution to the problem, if you want to avoid more situations like this, speak up when it counts. Prosecute these individuals to the fullest extent of the law and make sure that justice is served so that the people don't have to revolt just to get justice. There won't be any riots.
And more than a quick fix, more than this guy getting the aim should not be for this guy, David. How do you pronounce it? Chauvin. David Chauvin. More than him getting prosecuted and put in jail for a long time. If not, well, it should be life for life. That's how you do it in America. So it should be life.
I mean, I think so. Like, look. If a doctor betrays the Hippocratic oath, right? He can't be a doctor no more, and you get hit with malpractice lawsuits. I mean, those are the consequences for a doctor, but the consequences for a civil servant taking a human life, they really aren't that fucking bad. They let him get away with it.
They can walk.
So serious reform needs to happen. And we're not talking about just outraged citizens. We're talking about police officers. We're talking to police officers. If you are against police brutality, if you do not identify or practice these practices, you need to vocalize that so that the people you patrol and police know that you're not their enemy. Because that's what they need to know, that every cop is not my enemy. But if you stand silently while your coworkers are running around executing people, they're going to make you guilty by association. Order must be established.
Well, if you look at how his co-workers were reacting to the situation, they were cool. They were cool and calm. They were cool and calm, which suggests to me that that was not unusual for this guy to conduct himself in such a manner. Moreover, let's get into some corroborating evidence. Moreover, a previous employer of his, I think he up until 2 months ago, club owner, lady club
I
owner.
heard about that. They knew each other. They knew.
Yeah.
Well, there's a chance. There is a chance because they both did a security detail at a particular site at the same time, less than a year ago. There's a chance that they knew each other.
More than that, the lady spoke on David Chauvin's character, and she said that on African American nights, she noticed that his aggression levels were higher. He was more nervous, and this is an interview that's on the internet, so anybody can Google it. She noticed that he seemed scared. Her words, he seemed scared, and any trouble, any two people got in a fight, he would take out his mace and not just spray the people fighting, he'd spray everybody in the area. Mm-hmm. So that indicates that this guy was not fit for confrontational situations.
That denotes an even bigger problem. You see, these kind of maladjusted individuals with psychological issues, anger management issues, or whatever the hell's going on in that guy's head. His head's a bag of cats, right? And they tend to gravitate towards these positions of power, like a police officer, because they already know that there's a certain level of impunity they're going to have once they're wearing that badge and they're carrying that gun. That denotes an even bigger problem, that this message is conveyed to American citizens and they all receive it differently. To the perpetrators, to the criminals that wear badges, they gravitate towards being in that position of power because they already know what's been going on. The same way that the people are revolting right now because they know what's going on. The solution to this problem is long overdue, and it is actually more simple than it appears. Hold these men accountable for what they are, murderers. Implement serious reform in how these police officers are trained to deal with the general public. And there's your solution. It's not it really isn't complex. The reason people are mad is because they're starved for justice. They want justice. They're not getting it. So if you're not going to give it to them, they're going to take it from you. It really is that simple. It's causality.
Yeah. Political measures need to be instituted 100%. These guys, the law has to be changed so that these guys, when they mess up, talking about police, when they mess up, they're held to a higher standard in the courtroom.
Yes.
Not a lower standard, because what we see that they're held to a lower standard. We see that. That's the reality. They're held to a lower standard. So now what should happen is political measures, statutes need to be set in place where it is legal obligations of the courts to hold these men and women to a higher standard.
Exactly. Because just like any place of employment, a store manager is held to a higher standard than a supervisor, and a supervisor is held to a higher standard than an entry-level employee. And because of the power entrusted in them, the responsibility is greater. Thus, the repercussions must be greater if they're not doing their job. And it's been obvious for decades upon decades upon decades. These individuals aren't doing what they're supposed to do. They're not. And they're getting away with it. It's because the balance of power is tilted in their favor. They abide by a system that caters to them and basically alienates the average citizen. It's not uncommon for you to be in New York City, right? Standing in front of your building. and anybody that's ever lived in New York is going to notice. You could be sitting in front of your building where you live, minding your own business, and it's not uncommon for a beat cop to come over and tell you you got to go upstairs, infringing on your rights as an American. What crime am I committing that you have the power to tell me that I have to go home?
That's
But
correct.
because what happened to right to assembly, even though we're not actually assembling anything, we're just living in, sitting around in the neighborhoods that we live in. And somehow a police officer has the right to tell you you have to go home. And if you don't, they make the decision, oh, we're going to take you downtown and we're just going to make some bullshit charge to charge you with once you get there, wasting your time.
Yeah. And that's crazy. My last point, because I know you got people waiting. My last point is that let's talk about the actual move. Let's talk about the actual positioning of the police officer on the man's neck. All right. So in jiu-jitsu, that's called an arterial choke. Well, not with the knee. In jiu-jitsu, it's normally done with the arms. But the effect is the different types of chokes. It wasn't an air choke primarily. Primarily, it's what's called a blood choke. So with the knee positioned where it was cutting off his arterial vein to the head. So that's a blood choke. So now you're starving you're stopping the blood flow to the brain.
To the brain.
So now you cut that off for more than 2 minutes, you have a problem. You're going into brain damage. Those officers, or the prime officer, was on his neck for 8 minutes and 40 seconds. I think 47 seconds. Right. So what you have there medically is starvation of the brain of oxygen. After 2 minutes, that's a problem. Now,
I think if it can be established that this individual was aware of what maneuver he was using, ladies and gentlemen, that's a premeditated murder. You applied a particular chokehold and you knew what the ramifications of that chokehold given a certain number of time would be, and you implemented it anyway. It's a murder.
I put it to you. You said if he knew, and I put it to you that if he didn't know, then that's extreme incompetence and unbelievable for an officer who has been on the job for 19 years.
Exactly. That there's no way around the accountability that has to be associated with this kind of a situation. There's no way you're not accountable. You are completely accountable. Thus, you must be held completely accountable and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Because guess what? Regardless of the looters and the people who want to worry about looters, the reality of it is George Floyd couldn't have done anything to get himself out of that situation. What could he have done?
Nothing.
For anyone who feels like that could have been me, or that could have been my brother, that could have been my grandfather, my uncle, my cousin, my neighbor, my friend, for those individuals who are directly affected by these kinds of practices, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Never mind that Target is getting robbed and that they lost a couple of batteries or some people took some TVs. What we know is that you prioritize Target losing a TV more than the loss of human life. If that's what you're worried about. Anyway, I'm going to let Battle Rifle speak on this. It was good talking to you, Raphael.
Yes. Take care. Take care.
All right, take care. Battle, what's going on? What do you got to say about all this stuff that's happening in the country, man?
Man, I really agree with Raphael on this situation. It's, it
Signals going in and out, Battle.
boggles my mind that this is a situation.
Signals going in and out, Battle.
Hello?
Your signal's going in and out.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me better?
I can hear you better now.
Yeah, my bad. I'm outside, but it boggles my.
I'm still going in and out, Battle.
Mind that Raphael is in every way right. That this is a hold on a second. Is it better?
All right, it's better. It's better.
Raphael, what he said, I agree 100% on what he's saying.
It's still going in and out, Battle.
The situation
I
that
don't
America's
know.
been having
I don't know what true. I don't know where you at, man. But the signal's weak, man.
Is it better?
Now it's better.
Hello?
I can hear you now.
Okay, see, look, I had in some Bluetooth headphones, and they don't got like a mic feature like close to the mouth. It's just like a Bluetooth headphone. So
All right.
I just turned it off. Okay, so basically, like Raphael is right. This is a problem that America's been having for ages. They just had incompetent cops that was not going to get prosecuted for doing the things they do, and it's mind-boggling that people just don't acknowledge it. I don't want to be that person that just try to put people in certain categories and call them racist or bigoted, or bigoted, or prejudiced and stuff like that. But it is a bunch of people that, because I used to believe it in my mind, but I no longer believe it. It was a bunch of people that believe, oh well, they're the stat guys that like to bring up the stats. Police brutality is only very, very rare in police cases. Well, how do you really know that? Because almost every situation when it comes to police getting prosecuted, he's almost never prosecuted, and he almost never does any time because of that. The only time you almost do see it is when the cop has done really higher tier stuff like racketeering, or you remember how the cops that got arrested like back in the 1960s because they had like this drug racketeering, huh?
Oh yeah.
Like in Los Angeles or something like that. Yeah, that is the only time I see cops like really prosecuted for their actions. But when it comes to killing black people or killing other people like in the line of action, when it feels like it's unlawfully killing, they're almost never prosecuted, and that is why the thing about it, why it really needs a change. Raphael is right. There should be a change within within the Constitution or whatever, that, or the state laws that prevent cops from getting away with murder. This has been going on for a long time. It is absurd that somebody can say, I'm going to be able to kill somebody, but because I'm a cop, I can get away with it. That is absurd. That makes you one of the, I don't care what people tell me about freaking Machine Gun Kelly. I don't care what people tell me about Al Capone. I don't care what people tell me about freaking what's the guy's name? The rich guy who was like one of the richest guys in the world. I forget his name.
Who? Bill Gates?
No, the criminal.
Oh, you talking about Pablo Escobar?
Pablo Escobar. I don't care what you tell me. The police force are the greatest gang in history because for the simple fact that they can lawfully kill you and get away with it. I mean, no, I'm sorry. They can unlawfully kill you and get away with it. And that is a major problem. So the fact of the matter is, like, did you hear about the situation of a guy in Miami who got shot for pulling up his pants, like in a hotel? Like, did you ever hear about that?
I didn't hear about it, but it doesn't surprise me. I just want to address this comment. Let me address this comment from N. Simpson. Nobody wants to talk about white people being attacked in the riots. We can talk about it, but you want me to talk about the byproduct of a bigger problem. If there were no riots, nobody'd be being attacked. Because that is what you're talking about, people being attacked in the riots. Well, if police officers weren't sitting on people's necks until the point that they die, there wouldn't be people getting hurt in riots because there wouldn't be riots. So the way you nip that in the bud is to prosecute these individuals to the fullest extent of the law. If you're worried about people being hurt in riots, I'm just saying. Now, as far as compliance, Mr. Alex Collins, okay, at no point during that arrest and detainment was George Floyd not complying. So either this is a failed attempt at humor or you are an apologist. But either way, I've seen the footage. I've seen the footage from at least 4 angles, and at no point was he not complying with them. So I don't know what that comment is intended to do. Back to you, Battle.
But yeah, like there's actually footage of on YouTube. You can actually look it up. Basically there was reports that there was a drug dealer who was dealing out of a hotel or something. It was something along that matter. And the guy walked out of the apartment and they told him to get on the ground, comply with my demands. And they had like a whole SWAT team. So basically they told the guy was drunk, he was intoxicated, so he couldn't, process everything they was telling him. So he was like, get on the ground, crawl towards him. And when he was crawling towards him, he pulled up his pants and they shot the dude. And you want to know something funny? I think the attorney, they made it to where the jury wouldn't have to view the footage of the footage, so it wouldn't sway their opinion. So they actually scrapped the footage, and then the guy was not guilty. Of course, he got off, and he got compensated. I think they didn't even fire him. They like compensated him. They gave him like off pay or something like that.
Oh yeah,
and the guy
paid leave, which is commonplace in these situations. The guy loses,
and it's so ridiculous. It should not be the human. It should not be the civilians are so much afraid of the cops like this, to where the point that it's sickening. That this needs to change. Like, it really needs to change. They need to change how an officer portrays themselves. In the UK, they don't have this problem as much because their gun laws are very strict. But it is such a problem in America. It needs to change, really. And I'm sorry to hear about George Floyd, and it's such a situation that it just makes it really uncomprehendable. You don't feel safe anymore.
Exactly, and that's the point. That's why people lack confidence in their municipalities to protect them and serve them, even though the whole point of a municipality and being a civil servant is serving the people. But people don't trust the civil servants anymore. Nor should they. They don't have reason to, if this is what they got to look at on their television, on their internet, on their phone, on their computer. They have no reason to trust them. So my solution, a big part of my solution is, okay, if there are police officers out there that do not practice these behaviors, they need to identify themselves as such and stand with the people, because guess what? You serve the people. You're paid by the people. The tax dollars that come out of my check and yours and everybody else's, that's what goes to you getting paid. That's what our state taxes are for, okay? So serve the people. It's not complicated. Nobody's asking you to do a whole lot. If you're against this kind of practice, these kinds of practices, say it and stand with the people. That's what you're supposed to do. Now I'm gonna let Virtuoso get in on this, then I'm gonna let Mob get in on this. All right, it was good talking to you, Battle.
Okay, cool.
Okay, let me just address this comment. Two wrongs don't make no. This is my favorite comment. So your argument is childish. Here's childish. You watch a man get murdered in cold blood in broad daylight, and people become outraged, and your solution is what exactly? Please explain it to me. If you're George Floyd, what could you have done differently to stop them from killing you? Please tell me, since I'm so childish. If anything, come on here and tell me. There's a link right there. If you were George Floyd or you were Eric Garner, what were you supposed to do to stop them from killing you? If you were Amadou Diallo, if you even know who that is, Alex Collins. If you were Amadou Diallo, what were you supposed to stop those guys from lighting you up like a Christmas tree? I'm just saying, because I'm being childish. Bear in mind, I've said I'm not advocating for or against violence. I'm not advocating or not advocating. I'm not saying anything. I'm letting you know that this is a byproduct of injustice. So if you don't want this to happen, you need to nip it in the bud, and you need to nip it fast, because this is what's going to keep happening because people are tired of it. It's very simple. It really is. I still haven't heard. What was Amadou Diallo supposed to do to not get shot? I'm just curious. I'd like to know that. Alex, any ideas? Or are you reading up on who Amadou Diallo is so that you can give me a snappy comeback? What were you supposed to do? All right, now I'm going to let Virtuoso speak on this, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
Hey, Julius.
Hi, what's cracking, Virtuoso? How do you feel about what's going on?
I'm almost feeling like desensitized to it, because having been on this earth for 33 years, you kind of see this over and over again, and it feels like Groundhog Day. Um, what people I'm gonna just come from this angle, right? Do you remember Daniel Schaefer's was this white guy who got shot by a police officer who was really trigger happy in Mesa, Arizona?
Sounds
It happened.
familiar. Sounds familiar.
Yes, yes. So he was shot in a hotel hallway by a police officer. Cops were called in because he was brandishing a weapon. It was really just a pellet gun. But yeah, that was cause for probable cause, and I can understand why you called the police in that situation. The problem was is that this officer had prior, let's say, issues involving his police work, and he ended up shooting the dude after Daniel Schaefer's basically complied with the officer's demands, and he still got shot. So the thing that people don't want to understand is that America has a abusive relationship with power,
Yes,
that being law enforcement. And all you really have to do is see the juxtaposition between the treatment of the encounter of police, between whites and black. But I just wanted to ask these people is like, if you're gonna uh, use the hashtag All Lives Matter as a counter argument to Black Lives Matter, then why isn't there a rally? Why wasn't there a rally for that man, for that victim who got shot? Basically, what it was premeditated murder. Um, they didn't want to like whenever this stuff happens, right? It's always focused on the criminality of the victim.
Yep.
It's never about the police officer. This guy had like 17 like what prior like violations and stuff like that before this guy, dig this fucking knee into this man's neck. Um, that's just egregious. And like people need to wake up is that the police are not uh they're not really your friends. They're more like your adversary. There's always, even if you're white, there's always some way that that if you're in the vicinity, they're just gonna fuck with you. Um,
I just want to address a couple of comments that I see. For starters, peaceful protesting would have come into it only after George Floyd died. So you're not answering my question, Alex. You're not helping him, Reality's Voice. You're not helping him either. I'm not talking about peaceful protesting. I've already established that rioting is a causality. It's going to happen when there's an injustice. My question to you was very specific. For those individuals out there who might look like George Floyd, who could very well be George Floyd, if they found themselves in that situation, what do you recommend? What were your recommendations for George Floyd? Because you got a lot to say about looting, but you have nothing to say about police brutality. You're one like you're showing me your cards. I really hope you don't play poker with that face, Alex, because you're showing me your cards. You keep talking about looting. Is Target the real victim or is Walmart the real victim here?
it's just deflecting, Julius. It's like it's like the real looting is not people like just smashing like store windows or stealing property from a huge chain store. The real looting is the corporatists who run the government, who basically steal like billions of dollars from the Treasury Department in the form of bailouts, and nothing gets like people are suffering. People's material needs are not being met, and so when I see this, it's like this is the only form of expression when it comes to revolution, and this is the one and only way of doing things. Like Martin Luther King said, riots are the language of the unheard, and people are going to show their frustration. Now, let me point this out real quick. It's like when you had certain people, let's just say that stormed the state capitol in Michigan with military gear, with military grade weapons, and none of them were fucking thrown to the ground. None of them were handcuffed. None of them were tasered or pepper sprayed or used smoke grenades on them. No, they just let them do what they had to do and just flex their privilege, while the protesters, as soon as they see the cops in riot gear, is on site. They get met with tear gas.
Let me
They get met with rubber bullets.
let me just
It's
address this other deflection. Reality's voice. That is not what I asked you. You're focused on rioting and looting and how they shouldn't be doing that. They should be peacefully protesting. How about this? How about they not have a reason to protest anything because we as American citizens address police brutality? That way, we won't have to talk about rioting or looting. You're deflecting reality, quote unquote. You're deflecting. You don't let me just straight talk this shit. You don't care about police brutality, and that's fine. The why you're here not caring about police brutality is the weird part. That's all I'm saying. Like you don't have to care, dog. You're probably in your house. You don't have to care. But the people here are concerned with what's going on in the country. They're concerned with the practices of law enforcement officers. They're concerned. So that's why we're talking about solutions. You're concerned with whether or not somebody steals a pack of batteries at Target. Priorities, my friends. Priorities.
So yeah, it's always like the power dynamic is virtually in the advantage of the police officer. Um, Now I keep hearing like, okay, these guys are under a lot of stress, but then why do the job then? If you're not mentally equipped for the job, then just quit.
Yeah.
We don't have time to really sift through whether this guy's mentality is, oh, this guy should be taken care of or this guy should be looked after if people are not being looked after. Like we don't have the mechanism to break out of the cycle, to be honest with you. I really don't see no end to this thing. It's just going to keep on going and going.
This is what I think. I think that the way that officers are trained, that needs reform. I think that legislation needs to be passed. I think that at that level, certain things need to be implemented to deter these kinds of behaviors. That the racist cop that's hiding, that wants to do something to someone, he will have a deterrent because he knows what kind of penalties are waiting for him if he does something. A deterrent, something to make these kinds of people gravitate away from law enforcement positions so that we don't keep hearing about this. Because they gravitate towards those positions because they feel confident they're going to get away with it. Well, what if they were confident that they weren't going to get away with it? Suddenly, you don't want to be a cop anymore. It's not fun. No get out of jail free card. If you fuck up, if you do what you're thinking of doing, your fucking life is over. What if that were implemented? What if that were in place? Suddenly, there's no reason to riot. There's no reason for people to go to Target and do X, Y, and Z because these kinds of people aren't filling these kinds of positions. There is our solution. What's the problem? It's taking them too fucking long to do something about it, so people are taking it into their own hands, as they always have historically. When the system fails its people, the people tear down the system, and it's never been different.
Yeah, I've been calling for the police to be demilitarized because, like, when you try to hone in on what they're doing as far as training these people, it's like they're being trained by ex-military, and so when you have the mainstream media presenting an image of rioters or protesters that are being conflating as one, they want to present an image to basically white people. Let's just call it out. Like there's people that live in the sticks that see this and they've been born ready for a culture war.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want. I don't want a civil war. I want us to be together. Unity.
Oh, yeah, I mean, look, this is my stance on the future as a whole, as a human race. We get there together or we don't get there. And it is that simple. As a species, as a country, as a nation, as a fucking whatever, we get there together or we don't get there. So if you know that there are injustices happening at the municipal level or the governmental level, you have to stand up to that. Even if you're not directly affected by that, your neighbors might be, your friends might be, whoever. If there are injustices, you have to stand against them. Because what's the proverb? Evil men win when good men do nothing.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So if you know that there are things happening, and even if they don't direct you effectively direct you, but they're still wrong, you have to do something. You have to say something. You have to pick a side. If you want to be on the wrong side of history, go ahead. Go ahead, stand over there. It'll work for you the way it worked for Marie Antoinette on that level fake bullshit. Go ahead, it'll work for you the way it worked for her.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like they have to like I just want police accountability, you know?
Oh, and I
I'm
want to add this also. To this reality's voice person, yeah, that's a load of bullshit. Do you realize that major companies right now are siding with the protesters? Do you realize that? You're supposed to be reality, but you never seem to address it. Right now, Showtime has just posted on Instagram. They stand with the people. They stand with the protesters. And they're not alone. I'm telling you that DC Comics just did the same thing. I can name about. I think I've seen about 5 major companies in their industry stand with the people. But you're telling me that these riots won't affect any change. I'm sorry, dog, but you're not reality. You're propaganda.
Hmm.
Propaganda.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just tired of hearing the okay, well, not all cops. Okay, so not all cops, but then you're still gonna have to deal with um people that just want systemic change, and that you have to be accountable and call out your own. And I wish like these people that again the Tea Parties or these white trash people that were in the state capitol, you know, with the machine guns drawn, not machine guns drawn, but they were armed.
Yeah.
I wish they had that same energy when police gunned down one of their own, like Daniel Schaefer's.
Well, here's
Like
the
so
thing.
that
We
yeah
know that all cops aren't bad. At the end of the day, this is the truth.
yeah
We know that all cops. Not all cops are bad. But here's the problem: we can't distinguish the good ones from the bad one. You have to do
mhm,
that. You
mhm.
have to do that as police officers. You have to do
Ex-
that because we don't
exactly.
know which is which. You're all wearing the same uniform. So if
Hmm.
there are good cops and there are bad cops, can you please point them out to me, please? That way we know which is which. Because if you're
Hmm.
not going to do that, this is how people are going to react. It's very simple. I already said at the beginning of this video, I am not advocating for violence or against it. I'm telling you this is a case of causality. When injustice goes unchecked for too long, this is what's going to happen. So if you really don't want to see rioting and looting, because that's your biggest fucking concern, right? The rioting and the looting. Okay, then when it's time to when it's time for you to do something that counts, do it. Because I don't hear you guys complaining about George. I have to mention George to you for you to even acknowledge what we're talking about. You come on here talking about rioting and looting like Target has some kind of big shortage of money. Ridiculous. I'm going to close it off with this. My stance is very simple. Evil wins when good men do nothing. Don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? It's very simple. It's not complex. If you believe in good and you believe in doing what's right, then you know that this is an eventuality. You cannot treat people this way at any level because there will be a war. They will rise up against you. So in the future, moving forward, after all of this calms down, everything goes back to some kind of normal, right? When you hear about an injustice, you have to stand against it. Because if you don't stand at all, you're for it. You're for it. There's no gray area. You're either for this behavior, for this practice, for these kinds of practices, or you're against it. You have to pick a side. Indecision is betrayal. Silence is betrayal, especially when we're talking about injustice. And that's all I got to say about that. Virtuoso, it was good talking to you.
Good talking to you too, Julius. Goodbye, man.